Yarrick Vorn had spent most of his life beneath the hum of machinery and the hiss of hydraulic presses. On the industrial planet of Griffin 9, life for a mechanic was simple: repair, maintain, repeat. Wealthy nobles and high-ranking officers were distant legends, their faces glimpsed only on hollow posters or whispered in taverns. Yarrick had never cared about politics or power. He cared about engines, circuits, and making sure things moved as they were supposed to. But fate has a way of bending even the most ordinary lives into extraordinary stories. It all began one evening in the Sprocket Lounge, a dimly lit cantina near the spaceport, frequented by traders, pilots, and the occasional off-duty officer. Yarrick, exhausted from repairing a derelict star freighter, had wandered in, hoping for a quiet meal and a mug of synthale. He scanned the room for an empty table, unaware that one specific seat could change his life forever. Mistakenly, he settled at a table adorned with delicate crystalline goblets and silken cushions, meant for a delegation from the Emperor's palace. The chatter hushed for a moment as the attendants noticed his rough work clothes and grease-stained hands. Yarrick, oblivious to the stares, began his meal. It wasn't long before he noticed her. A young woman, her posture restrained by an ornate hovering chair, was seated at the far end of the table. Her left leg was paralyzed, and subtle machinery traced along her spine, keeping her upright and supported. But her eyes glimmered like twin stars, fierce and intelligent, betraying none of the pity that others might feel. The palace attendant stiffened. Whispers spread like wildfire. "The Emperor's daughter," one murmured. Another muttered about the last accident that had left her crippled in the palace's gardens. The room's atmosphere shifted, tension tightening like a coil. Yarrick, entirely unaware, finally looked up and met her gaze. Their eyes locked, and for an instant, time seemed to slow. He had never seen anyone so alive. In that gaze, he sensed a mind untamed by the conventions of the court, a spirit no mechanical aid could bind. A stern attendant approached, hand poised for reprimand. "Sir, you this table." I didn't realize," Yarrick said quickly, standing. But the princess raised a hand, and the room fell silent. "Leave him," she said. Her voice was soft, yet carried authority that silenced even the attendants. "He may stay." Yarrick froze, uncertainty and awe battling inside him. He nodded hastily, trying not to betray his shock. The princess, whose name he would soon learn was Liara, smiled faintly. It was almost imperceptible, yet it carried warmth. "You have the look of someone who understands machines," she said, gesturing toward the grease stains and scuffed boots. "I could use your mind." Yarrick blinked. I don't know what you mean, Your Highness." She studied him carefully. "The palace, my home, it is failing. Our defense systems, our transport shuttles, even the caretaking automatons, they're all compromised. I need someone who does not fear failure. Someone outside the court's politics. Someone like you." It sounded impossible. The Emperor's daughter, crippled, isolated, trusting a lowly mechanic like him? Yarrick wanted to refuse, but something in her calm gaze pushed him forward. Something beyond words compelled him to agree. "Very well," he said. "I'll help." From that night forward, Yarrick became the hidden guardian of the palace's inner workings. Liara's chambers were a labyrinth of hidden corridors, secret maintenance access, and ancient machinery long neglected by the court's engineers. Together, they worked in silence, repairing, upgrading, and reprogramming systems that kept the palace functioning. Liara directed, Yarrick executed, and a bond formed between them, one not born of blood or title, but trust, respect, and shared purpose. Yet the palace was not safe. Rumors of a coup had begun to circulate. Factions within the court saw Liara's disability as weakness, plotting to seize power while the emperor was away on diplomatic missions. One evening, As Yara calibrated a set of defense drones, an alert blared. Intruders had breached the outer gates. They were heavily armed, and their intent was clear: capture the princess. Jarek's heart raced. He didn't consider himself a soldier, but he had learned much from his years in the mechanics of warships and industrial security. Armed with tools converted into weapons, he rushed to Liara's side. Her chair activated, releasing protective energy fields around her, yet she remained calm, guiding him with precise instructions. Together, they fought through the palace corridors. Jarek's ingenuity transformed ordinary maintenance tools into lethal defenses. Hydraulic wrenches became hammers of force, cutting torches ignited traps, and magnetic clamps immobilized advancing soldiers. Liara used her knowledge of the palace's systems to manipulate doors, lights, and ventilation shafts, giving them a tactical edge. Hours passed like minutes in the chaos. Finally, they reached the central chamber, the heart of the palace. The intruders, elite assassins trained in the Emperor's own guard, surrounded them. The air crackled with energy as weapons charged and pulses hummed through the floor. Jarek's hand shook, but Liara's gaze steadied him. "You can do this," she said. "Trust yourself." In that moment, Yarek realized he had been transformed. He was no longer just a mechanic. He was a protector, a strategist, a man capable of defending not only machines, but lives more precious than any he had ever known. The battle was brutal. Yarek dodged energy blades, activated emergency defense systems, and even leveraged the palace's gravity modulators to throw enemies off balance. Liara, with her knowledge and command of the palace's automated defenses, coordinated the counterattack flawlessly. Their synergy was uncanny, a blend of intellect, courage, and instinct. When the dust settled, the intruders lay incapacitated or fled, retreating into the shadows from which they came. The palace had survived the night. Liara, though exhausted, smiled faintly. "I knew you were more than a mechanic," she said. "I was right to trust you." From that day forward, Yarek was no longer a lowly worker in Griffin 9's underbelly. He became a silent protector of the Emperor's daughter, a man whose courage and skill had prevented disaster. Though titles were meaningless to him, the respect and trust he earned from Liara were worth more than any reward the galaxy could offer. Months passed. The Emperor, aware of the plot and grateful for his daughter's safety, offered Yarek a place in the palace, not as a courtier, but as a chief engineer and guardian of Liara. He accepted, not out of ambition, but out of purpose. The palace's systems thrummed under his care, defenses were strengthened, and Liara flourished, her intelligence and vision now unshackled from fear. Yarek often reflected on that first evening, when a simple mistake, sitting at the wrong table, had altered the course of his life. That accidental choice had led him to discover courage he did not know he possessed, forge bonds that transcended class and status, and protect a life that would shape the future of the Griffin 9 Empire. And as he watched Liara oversee the palace, commanding respect with a grace and authority beyond her years, he understood a simple truth. Sometimes, destiny arrives disguised as a mistake, and sometimes a lowly mechanic can change the fate of a dynasty. For Yarek Vorn, the hum of machinery was no longer just a sound of work.